Hey everyone, this is Teresa Hegel, Executive Editor of Special Projects and Sustainability at ASI.
And this is Cassie Green, Content Director of Apparelist and Editor at Printing United Alliance. And you're listening to Branding Together, a new adventure into the converging worlds of print and promo.
We're here to bring you an engaging monthly discussion that dissects just how closely each of these industries align. Whether you're a promotional products distributor, commercial printer, apparel decorator, or a little bit of everything, our topics and guests will bring the ultimate crossover conversation.
When you're ready to bring your business to the next level, get lost in this month's episode, which is set to happen in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Well, welcome to March. And I'm hoping for all of you, maybe Teresa included, that got pummeled with the winter storms. It's starting in January and into February. That you're all seeing some signs of warmer spring weather. It's definitely been a wild winter for some of us. And I don't only mean when it comes to the weather. Haha, had to throw in some little wordplay there. The print and promo industries are also seeing a lot of change. So we've got a really great episode this month that dives a bit into business diversity and growth. We're going to take a look at this through the retail lens. Our guest this month is definitely an expert on that. But first, Teresa, as per usual, let's get to some headlines. So do you want to kick us off this month?
Yeah, absolutely. So to mention the snow first, we still have some snow on the ground, but it is melting finally. And I think I heard tell that there might be another storm coming, but I'm hoping that is not true. I'm hoping it's just a vicious rumor and that it's going to be, green grass and sunshine. But, I could be delusional. But first up, we have, this is a story that I wrote recently. The headline is Made to Order Apparel Levels Up Promo Campaigns. Essentially, this is a story about cut and sew apparel kind of from the ground up, fully custom stuff, the benefits and the challenges. Essentially, distributors and suppliers can kind of win high value business by delivering products that don't exist off the shelf. It boosts differentiation and customer loyalty despite higher upfront complexity. So I talked to a bunch of different suppliers, distributors, decorators. They gave me a lot of really interesting stories that they shared, and just, why would anyone do this? Because it takes more time. It's more difficult in some ways, but the results can be very exciting and they'll really kind of knock people's socks off. So for instance, All USA Clothing was able to kind of reverse engineer a client's favorite jacket. They had this very complicated jacket with piping and color blocking and all kinds of different bells and whistles. And they literally took it off his back just for a day, reverse engineered it and came up with a version of it, and then went into production, did thousands of them because the client was so impressed with that. So that's something you can't really do off the shelf. You can't just get a blank and create that. Another example was Codis Design, which is a top 40 distributor in our industry. They were talking about doing this custom reversible flight jacket. They could control every detail down to how thick the batting was. And it was all tied to the release of a video game, Starfield. And some of the people I talked to, they said their friends were like, "Oh, did you see this cool jacket?" And he's like, "Yeah, we did that. That was us." So it's just kind of a really cool story. I really enjoyed writing it. I loved hearing everyone's stories. And so those are kind of the sexier examples, but it's also the cut and sew and this very custom work is also good for things like uniforming programs, because you can really control the color, right? If you're sourcing from a bunch of different suppliers, even if it's allegedly the same color, different batches, different, dye houses, it could be a little different. And if you are trying to have a uniform program, you want the colors to actually be uniform. So there's a lot of different uses for, custom cut and sew work. The key is you have to have the time to actually do it, because a lot of it is overseas and that adds a lot of time to the timeline.
Yes. A cut and sew is such a cool technology and way to create and decorate apparel. I'm very excited about this. And it sounds like you had a good mixture of perspectives to weigh in. which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
also
I always
really
go
good.
hard
So
with my sources. I'm like, I need to like reach out to like 20 people because what if they don't get back to me? And then I'm like, oh
yeah,
wait, they all got back to me. What am I gonna do
oh my god,
now? So
you hit the journalism jackpot there, by the way.
well, I just it's the anxiety. That's what like drives me. So
I get you. Hey, we all do it. We all reach out to 10 million people because you just never know who's going to respond and who's not.
this
So
is
I get it.
true.
Awesome. Well, first headline I want to share, and then, but of course, this is relevant to both you and I because the Sustainable Merch Summit
Yay!
2026 returns
Woohoo!
on Earth Day. Can
Yes.
we raise
Perfect.
the
Yeah, yeah,
roof?
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean, right, we've got to host this event on Earth Day, right? It just like what a serendipitous timing. This is going to be perfect. So, backtracking a little bit for anybody listening to this that's not aware. So, Teresa, myself, we partnered with Jay Bussell and Jeff Solomon over at the Brandon Merch Network, along with Aaron Montgomery, Terry Combs of Two Regular Guys, to put on the first ever Sustainable Merch Summit last year. And it was a huge success. Of course, we have to do it again. Not only are Teresa and I sustainability warriors, but we're really working to have, influence real change in the industry and give people all of the tools they need to run a more sustainable business, whatever that means. So, we will return April 22nd, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It will still be co-hosted by ASI, Apparelist, Branded Merch Network, Two Regular Guys. And we are really excited to sort of flesh out some of the topics that we started to touch on last year, but then really get a lot deeper in some of these things like certifications and legislation that we're seeing happen, particularly now in the US. We're seeing a lot of EPR laws that have either already been passed or starting to pass. So these are all things that we need to pay attention to that absolutely impact both print and promo. So really excited. We'll make sure we share links to that to get, and get more details. But then as we ramp up, we'll start sharing more links to register and all that good stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So stay tuned, essentially, is what we're
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
So the other thing that I wanted to share is another event that just happened that Cassie and I were both at, the Print on Demand conference. This was the second year for this event that was put on by Stahl's Fulfill Engine. This year it was in sunny West Palm Beach, Florida. There were, I think, 250 professionals from suppliers, demand generators, decorators, distributors, kind of the whole gamut of people. They all came together to collaborate and talk about print on demand, which, you know, how it's growing, how it's changing, why automation is important, why you need infrastructure for this to work, why speed is critical to success. It was a really great event. I thought we had a nice mixture of people speaking, networking time, kind of interactive activities. And I think that everybody that went really got something out of it. I know that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I took away a ton of things. And also bonus, Teresa and I did like a little branding together mini episode, like man on the street sort of thing, where we asked everybody one burning question. And so keep an eye out on our channels if you haven't seen it. It's actually really fun and people had some cool things to say.
Listen, and it's fun because we did it at the party, so everyone was a little looser. They might have had like a beer already. They were still very smart. The answers were all very intelligent. But we had a little more fun with it. It was a lot looser than the regular format.
Yeah, there may or may not be some B-roll of people dancing. So, worth a watch.
Not to call anyone out, but if you're gonna start dancing at a event, there might be
Cough,
cameras
cough.
rolling.
Yeah, Davis Slagle. He won't mind if we call him out. He was part of our awesome merch
Yes,
collaboration,
yes.
so he likes being in the spotlight.
I would hope so. I mean, that yellow blazer, like if you're gonna wear that, you're gonna be noticed.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna stand out. People are gonna have video of you. Excellent. Well, last headline before we get into the next segment of our show. This was kind of big breaking news, sort of right at the end of February. Heat Transfer Warehouse announces a closure. So this is something we happened to learn as we were, perusing social media channels and we hopped on the Heat Transfer Warehouse site, which is where they announced that after more than 15 years in business, they are going to wind down operations, which is, it's very interesting. We've seen a lot of disruption in the industry the last couple of years. I feel like between M&A activity, closures, even new faces in the industry, we continue to see this shakeup, right? And so this is definitely a bigger one. Heat Transfer Warehouse, pretty well-known player in the industry. So as things develop, we'll try and keep everybody updated. I'm not sure of timelines. When we put this press release together, the company was unavailable for comment. So we just haven't confirmed any details yet. But of course, if you are a Heat Transfer Warehouse customer, make sure you're working with them. I don't need to say that to all the decorators or people out there. Change, right? This just is indicative that our industry continues to change, evolve, grow, and it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You never know. Sometimes that kind of news really just comes out of nowhere, and you're so surprised. But then oftentimes more details will come out, and you're like, okay, this makes sense. But it is definitely a
Right.
shock when long kind of established companies make announcements like that.
Right. Absolutely. So anyway, wrapping up those headlines, Teresa, thanks for sharing the information. We'll make sure, as per usual, we share all the links in our show notes. But we wanted to now kind of transition to our next part of the show, which is where Teresa and I sort of pick a topic and really offer a little bit of insight and our observations on it. And because we're all ready for spring over here and growth, we wanted to take a moment to really dive into this topic of diversification, but a little bit different than we normally come at this topic, right? Because as our regular listeners know, this podcast was born from the convergence and partnership that ASI and the Alliance have that really talks about the blurring of the lines between print and promo. But something very interesting that we're starting to see a lot more of is now this blurring of the lines between our industries and retail, right? And so, especially coming off of the POD conference where we're talking about the customer experience and everybody's looking for that personalized retail fashion unboxing sort of experience. I just really see it, especially in the apparel decoration side. A lot of decorators are starting to blur those lines. They're not only printing for retail brands, but a lot of them are launching their own retail brands. They're creating more of this retail experience. So, Teresa, I'm actually really curious to see what you're seeing on your side. What is the mindset shift you're seeing when it comes to building sort of retail inspired, promo, merch, whatever?
So, I mean, definitely over the last few years, there has been a shift to having actual retail name brands, available pretty quickly in the promo industry. Like when Stanley came out, everybody needed. Well, that didn't come out, but when it became popular,
Right,
like
right.
everybody wanted to be able to get that for promo. But then you just see like, who's offering a Lala, who's offering um Hydro like all the different kind of or Hydro Flask, I guess it's called.
Right.
But basically like any kind of name brand apparel or name brand drinkware, people want to be able to offer that because it automatically kind of elevates whatever merch you're doing because if it's a recognizable brand, then they sort of know what they're getting. So I think that's been a trend for a while. Um, but also something, and this was actually a blog post that I just saw that Charity Gibson did. Um, and I thought it was kind of brilliant. So I'm going to just like kind of paraphrase some of what she said. But she was talking about how your logo is not your brand, right? So you cannot just be like throwing a logo onto something and calling it a day. Nobody wants that. Like, unless you're like Nike, nobody cares about your logo, but your brand is like what people feel about you when they see your logo. And the idea is that like promo products, the products are a blank slate and there's no rules. So you can put whatever you want on them. So you need like a message that's really cool, something that's going to speak to people that they're actually going to want to wear, that's still going to be equated with your brand, but not just your logo. You need to go beyond that. And I think more and more kind of companies are understanding that. I mean, for instance, I think a couple of months ago, Microsoft, not exactly known for being like the sexiest, coolest brand. I mean, has plenty of recognition, but like who actually loves Microsoft? Not many, but people, but they did like they called it sheetwear instead of streetwear. And it was like, they had like a hoodie that said, oh my gosh, making sheet happen since 1985. I think it's for Excel, and it was very funny. And it was like,
Wow.
it was very well done. Like, I don't think it
Yeah.
said Excel anywhere in a huge way. I think there was like a tiny little like hem tag that had the Microsoft, the little squares, that little logo, but it had
Mhm.
that big like making sheet happen. And everyone, like it was in the kind of font that you would recognize as a Microsoft font.
Right.
But it was like, it was cool. It was funny. It was something that people would want to wear. And I think that's the shift we're seeing, is that people want things that is more than just your logo. Your logo can
Right.
be represented somewhere, but you shouldn't have it huge. That should not be the focus. You need to have something clever, creative, messaging that kind of elevates your brand. And it has to be on something that people are going to want to wear or use.
Right? I mean, all I always go back to this example. All I can ever think about are like the cheap, horrible branding items of yesteryear, whatever
Mhm.
you want to say. Like you go to this really cool event and then you get this awful scratchy cheap t-shirt with the company's logo on it. And
That
you're
you'll
like,
never
I'll never
wear.
wear this ever again. Ever. It's going to go in the landfill, God forbid.
Right.
But like I agree with you as we start to as these companies, like I think Microsoft's a perfect example. I'm so glad you mentioned that because as they start to recognize that people will represent them if they provide the right type of retail inspired merch, companies are starting to do that.
Mhm.
And it's a really interesting shift, and I think it again plays back to like I gonna go back to it again, the POD conference where it's this experience. So I will happily represent a brand I love whose ethos align with mine if their merch, their gear, their promo products, whatever tells a story and is
Mhm.
something that I think is cute that I love to wear or I love to use,
And if
right?
it's something that
And
you kind of have personalized too, if you get to have a hand
yes,
in the creation, that makes it more fun. Um,
right.
but also just going back to the print on demand thing, that also frees up distributors and decorators as well as their clients to try new things out, right? So
Right.
you don't have that risk of inventory kind of tied up in something. But if you want to see if like a cool design will resonate with people, if
Right.
you want to launch like a retail brand, just do it online and come up with these, create the designs, but
Mhm.
you're not tying up a whole bunch of like t-shirts that may not sell. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
there's I think the reason, like one of the reasons why, these retail lines that distributors and decorators were kind of doing on their own is probably partly because of the print on demand boom, because it's not like they're taking on a ton of risk. They're already
Right.
using the knowledge and creativity that they have, but they can just sort of throw things up and like create a brand of their own without like tying up a lot of inventory and money into it.
Fully agree. And I think of this from like two different perspectives in the apparel decorating printing industry specifically. I think about the decorators that are printing for retail brands. It's exactly what you said. There's more thoughtful vision put into it. They're not apparel decorators anymore. You're a printing partner, you're a brand telling partner, you're a visionary. You're the person that, if some big corporate client comes to you and says, "This is the vision I want to execute on," it's not good enough, as you said, to just put a left chest logo anymore. It's just not. And that's not what your customer wants either. You have to really bring the inspiration. You have to understand who they are, what their brand stands for, and really help them create these packages, these printed items that go way deeper than basic boring. The other side that I see this as, and I think of in particular, there are a couple different decorators I've heard of in the last year that have sort of taken over a retail brand.
Cool.
They now have a storefront. Uh, they're not just decorators; like it's their brand. And I'm sure she wouldn't mind me mentioning Nikki Bowen of Cotton Street Apparel. They recently took over a retail store in their area because it's such an impactful brand in the community. So now they have these two different entities where they're doing production, but they're also doing the B2C side of it as well. Which is a really interesting mindset shift that now you have to approach it not only as a printer,
Mhm.
but now you're a consumer facing brand. So how do you market that? You market it completely different than you would market your printing services,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like this shift that we're starting to see but also like a blurring of the
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah. But one thing I also think is interesting. So if you are someone like Nikki who has this B2C brand now, you can take the trends and the data you get from the business to consumer side and apply it to your production side, right? Because
Right.
if you know what is trendy at retail, you can use that to help your other clients because
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Why wouldn't
Like
you?
there's so much, it's blurring, but there's so much you can do with both sides that kind of complement each other.
Oh, I totally agree. And I also like think about that's the perfect opportunity to use AI,
Mm.
right? I'm sorry. I had to bring it into the conversation. Whatever. It's here. It's happening. We are embracing it. But that's a great opportunity, as you said, to use AI to take all that data you're getting from the retail side, analyze all those trends, and then use it to apply to that other side of your business, that printing side of your business. And now you're really taking that. It's not only just inspiration now, it's real numbers, which is what people want to see. They want proof that what you're pitching, this concept, this storytelling is going to work.
Right.
So it's a very interesting side of the industry that I'm just seeing more and more of.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think this is all just kind of goes back to what we always talk about, this convergence of print and promo and apparel. And now it's the convergence of, promo and retail. Like everything is sort of coming together. Um, like where are those distinctions? They don't necessarily exist anywhere but in our mind, because I think like regular consumers aren't necessarily going to be like, oh, this is just a B2B thing, or this is just a
yeah,
B2C thing. Like, that's not how they think about it. They just think, I can go online and order this, So
exactly.
maybe we have to adjust how we think of it as well, because we may be the only ones that still have these kind of walls up.
Yeah.
I don't think online that people think of it the way our industries traditionally think of things.
No, I think your conversation with Ross Greenstein of Brand Sauce at the POD conference is a perfect example of that, because that's what he's working so hard to do is how do we tell our story to the consumer side of this equation, because it's a completely different how they think about it versus how we think about it. And I even think about like whenever somebody asks me, what do you do for a living, Cassie? And I try and explain what I do, but I can't just tell people I'm a content director for a publication that works in the apparel printing space, because no consumer actually understands what the hell that is,
You can
right?
watch their eyes glaze over if you say that.
Yeah, so I'm sure you run into this too. You end up telling the story of like how our industry operates. All these people understand exactly what I'm saying, but not in the way we talk about it internally.
Right. No, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Which is fascinating, but and probably a whole other podcast episode, and we don't need to get up on our soapboxes, but it was just food for thought. And truthfully, it actually takes us beautifully into the next segment of our podcast episode, because we have Jimmy Bryant joining us today. He is the founder of the popular outdoor-inspired retail brand Atomicchild. Jimmy has roots in the apparel decorating business, but then he set out several years ago to launch his retail brand. If you haven't heard of Atomicchild, perhaps you recognize the very famous Yeti stickers that have like the cartoony mountains. I wish I own several Atomicchild
We'll
pieces.
have to put
Actually,
them in the show notes.
yeah, we will. Here, I've got a sticker.
Oh.
So anyone who's watching the video version,
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's a pretty popular. I see it on people's bumpers.
Yeah. Definitely
Their car window. Yeah, everywhere. Right. It's pretty popular. He's got stuff in REI stores around the nation, which is pretty cool. But he is here to discuss what building a retail brand actually takes and the challenges and victories that come with it, especially as you transition from more of the printing production side into the retail side. So, without further ado, welcome, Jimmy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Women in Print Alliance is dedicated to connecting, empowering, and advancing women in the print industry. As part of Printing United Alliance, we're fostering a more inclusive future through advocacy, education, and networking opportunities that connect women across the entire industry. Join us as an individual to grow your career, expand your network, and access exclusive resources, or enroll your entire organization to show your commitment to supporting women in print. Become a member today at womeninprintalliance.org and help us shape the future of print.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Jimmy Bryant of Atomicchild. Thanks for being on our show.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward
Yeah,
to chatting.
very excited to talk with you. And, we've crossed paths a few times in our past, but for anyone listening to this podcast who maybe is less familiar with you and with your brand, can you kind of let's go way back and talk about your early background, because you have some roots in the production side of the printing industry. So, what really brought you to apparel decorating and then ultimately like being in this world of, I guess, retail apparel?
So, I mean, I guess even before I got an actual job in doing production, I designed like merchandise for bands. So that really got me into like t-shirt design, and I really fell in love with that in like the early 2000s. And I was doing that freelance while I just had a regular job. And then I did that for a good decade almost, just freelance on the side. And then I was about 30 and decided I was like, oh, I need to get a job in art or whatever. So then that's how I finally got a job doing production, art directing at a company where we designed t-shirts and made products for people. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door into this wonderful world of production.
I believe you know our mutual friend, Jeremy Picker.
Yes. I used to work with Jeremy back in the day when we used to sit in a little room together right next to each other, shared the same desk.
That's so funny. I love Jeremy. Um, so when did you first realize you wanted to create your own brand? Can you walk us through the moment when you decided to launch Atomic Child, and what was that kind of leap like?
I think like a lot of people, like I've always had this idea of like, oh, I want a brand, and you kind of have that in your head, but you don't ever like think that's going to happen. um, so when I started working there, I had to actually before that when I was doing band merchandise, I started my own brand back then. But it was one of those things where I ordered a ton of shirts and didn't sell any because I didn't know anything. But when I started working at Amber, which Jeremy is the creator of, it was the first time in my life I heard a job where I sat at a desk. I Before that I had worked in construction, rental, so it was delivering equipment and like cleaning equipment and like taking your customers all day. So it was the first job I ever like sat down at a desk for 8-10 hours a day. Um, Good and bad.
Right.
So I started listening to podcasts, and I had started listening to this podcast where they were talking about, like going out and selling your own products and like doing it direct to customer, direct in life, in real life, and not just online. And I was like, oh, I should try that. So that was kind of like the thing that started that turning of again about having a brand and just kind of selling directly to people. And then obviously like working there, I had all the connections to create my own products, which is now is way easier, but a decade ago was a lot harder to have those connections.
Right. And what is Atomic Child? Where does that kind of come from? What is the brand exactly?
So that's one of those things that I created when I was 21 or 22, and I was in college, and I didn't think that was like something that I would be using, 26 years later. But basically in college, my favorite artist was Keith Haring,
Oh.
and he just had a little drawing called The Radiant Baby. And like I just needed to create a name because we were like making websites or whatever in Dreamweaver back in the day. uh, so that's why I came up with that, and then I've just always used it. So it's pretty random, but at least for what I do, like an outdoor brand, it really kind of stands out because most things are like supply or gear, or like it's just. So yeah, that's how that came about.
It is a really sticky name. It's very memorable.
And it starts with A, so anytime I do a collab, I'm usually right at the top. So
Alphabetical benefit.
yes.
So let me ask you this, Jimmy. What were some of the early challenges that really surprised you as you made the move from the production world into building a consumer brand?
Well, the fun thing about starting a consumer brand is you never get to leave the production world. Still do that to this day. What was some of the early challenges? What was the question?
Mhm. Yeah. Some of the early challenges that you found as you sort of transitioned.
I mean, I had been doing it for 4.5 years basically before that. So there wasn't really too many challenges because I was already doing it. I just started making my own stuff instead of doing it for other people. Um, I had saved up money, so I had like capital and everything, but I was just like doing really small runs. And obviously in, 2017, 16, things were way cheaper. So yeah, I didn't really have any challenges because I was doing it for a job every day. So
Well, so let me ask you, what about now as we have grown? Because you've grown significantly, and we're going to get into this later. But as you've grown, what challenges have you really sort of?
I mean, obviously capital is always a problem because the more you grow, the more money you have. And anytime you do a brand where you're selling physical products, especially apparel, you burn through your cash. You pretty much get the thing, sell it, and you're like, oh, look at this money I made. And then you just spend it all again getting more things to sell. So that's kind of never ending. I would say keeping things in stock, the lead times, depending on what's going on in the universe and the world, that can cause problems. Just different vendors, it's just always changing, and like, inflation and like last few years with pricing. And I mean, I think I remember like shirts being like $5 or $4 like when I started, like to get, like printed, and now so it's just like everything goes up and up. And then, wholesalers still want to make their 2 or 3 or 4 times what you're actually selling it to them. And so that's all kind of challenging. And then these days that just kind of makes wholesale a lot more challenging. So I do a lot less of that now, but
Yeah.
So, I mean, you sort of touched on this already, but your artwork and the brand vibe had that strong, like outdoorsy feel. Where does the creativity come from for the designs that you do and the whole Atomicchild vibe?
I mean, I grew up, I've always grown up like it. My dad was in the Air Force. So like I grew up in Maine a little bit, which was like, we were like all basically in Canada. So that was kind of remote out in the middle of nowhere. And then he got transferred to South Dakota, and I grew up out on a farm. So I was just out in the middle of nowhere, just out in nature. We're just able to do whatever we want. And then we moved to Colorado. So I've always just been around that. But as far as just like drawing and all that, I mean, I was just one of those kids who always drew, and I was lucky enough to have parents that were never like, be a doctor, I guess. So I've always been drawing.
Yeah.
So that, but yeah, I've just always done that. And then it's just, the difficult path of trying to figure out how do you actually make that a living. That's the super challenging part. Because I didn't start making a living off my art until I was probably 36 or 37. So I started this later in life, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that's inspiring to people too, because it shows that you're you're not giving up that passion, and you can still make something happen. I mean, it's not later in life, but like not right away. You don't have the
When you're
success.
37, you feel like it is. And then now that I'm 47, I feel like, dang, I'd be 37 again.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm almost 47, so 36 sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me,
Yeah.
It's all in perspective.
You're right. How do you test your designs? Because you come up with a lot of different ones here, and but how do you test and really know? Okay, yes, we need to do some higher production on this.
I just make stuff I like. I mean, I have a really unconventional, like I kind of live in my own little universe. I feel like that I've built. I do a lot of markets in person. I feel like that's kind of the easiest way to test. Is taking things out, putting it on a table, and seeing if people actually buy it. But I mean, I've obviously made things that nobody likes. But if I like something, I make it, and then hopefully it does. That's kind of the gist of what I do.
Yeah.
But like after doing it for a decade, I mean, I kind of know my space at this point, and kind of like what people like and what I do. So if I kind of stay within those bounds, it's just kind of a depending on like, is it going to sell fast? Is it going to sell slow? So yeah, now it's a little easier, but still the same way though. I just make something I think is cool to me and see what happens.
Yeah. So, and actually, sorry, I'm like full of questions today,
No, go ahead.
apparently. So like kind of building on that a little bit. I also live in Colorado, and every time I go to the airport, I see, not every time, but like I've seen your airport kiosk. You've got kiosks in malls. You've got some presence in stores like REI. You did a water bottle collab a while back. How do you go about building those relationships and sort of pitching your designs and whatnot to sort of these bigger retail players?
So the real answer with REI was that was luck, and I'll pretty much tell you why. It was like luck and hard work, but because I haven't been able to get into a big box store like that since then. I mean, it's very hard to talk. Like, I've been talking with Target now for like 5 years, just back and forth through emails. Like, they're like, oh, okay, and then it's just, so it's really hard. But I really was just everything that has happened in my businesses so far has been meeting people in person in real life, doing markets. Like, that's how I got into REI, was I did a market. I met some friends. This guy that I met there worked at REI, and he was like, "Hey, would it be cool if you sold your stuff in REI?" And of course, I was like, "Yeah, sure," like that'd be sick. And then, it just went up the chain, and I did all the stuff. So really, meeting in person. I mean, it's so easy to email people, and that does work. But I feel like everybody's inundated with. I think I have like 300 unread emails. Like, I just give up at some point. It's just like the email is never ending. So I think it's your best bet's to try to talk with people in person these days. I would say that's the way you make a lasting impression instead of just like another email. It's harder to break through that way.
Yeah, and I mean, it shows you're serious if you're actually face to face with someone.
Right.
Well, I think that's almost even more unique now than anything. Like, everybody's getting texts and emails all the time, and they just get lost.
Yeah. Going old school. So, I mean, what advice do you actually have for printers and promo distributors who might be considering stepping into the retail world? How can they, what can they do to make that transition?
You mean like creating their own brand, or just trying to get customers? Or
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think if you have a main business that is paying your bills, it's almost impossible to try to start a second business that pays your bills.
So don't do it, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying don't, but like, you literally, if you want the second thing to be anywhere near as successful as your first thing, you have to think about how much effort you put into your first thing being successful. And then you need to put that exact same amount of effort into that second thing, unless you get super lucky, which sometimes it does happen. But like, most of the time, if you're running another business, do you have another 100% to give to another business?
That's a good point.
So I would just say, like, you either need to have people that can put that kind of effort into it, or just slowly work on it at nights, I guess. But like, if I tried to start another business, I would just never be able to put the same amount of energy into it.
That's probably, I'm sure you're preaching to the choir of most of our audience, because most of our listeners are usually, quote unquote, small business entrepreneurs, have their roots in the entrepreneurs side of it. And most of them will say, yes, we don't ever sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, you have the one thing that's, especially if you're in production, like those guys are like, it's just nonstop all day, every day. And you got to manage all your people, and just, I mean, I've worked in a print shop, like with Amber, back when we were small, we were inside a print shop, and just watching how much those people work, and the endless amount of, like, I couldn't imagine, like, oh, I'm going to start something else on the side, when you got to keep that flow going. Cause it's like, as soon as those machines stop, you're just losing money,
Yeah. I think that I feel that too, just because as a writer professionally, I always I'm like, oh, why can't I do my creative writing? Like, I want to do some, like, write a novel or this. I have no energy left for it because I put it all into like the day job. So it's hard to save that energy for the creative work for yourself when you have a full-time job that you have to, bring it for.
And it just gets harder the older you get, because it's like, now that I have a family, like, I started this before I had a family and I had a job. So I was like, at night, I would just do this, and it was no problem. I could just spend 6-8 hours a night, not sleep, and do all that stuff. But like, now my time is, I can't do that because I have a daughter that has to get up and go to school, and all the other things you have to do with your family. So it definitely gets harder. I mean, you can always do it. You can always take time and make time, but if you have your own business and it's already paying your bills, it's pretty hard to just start dumping money into something else when that thing has to keep going.
Right.
Because I have all these ideas to start other brands, but I'm endlessly drawing artwork and filling POs and running around to all the different things that I'm doing just for this. So that can be good and bad.
Right. No, it's good because it sounds like you've got a well of creative inspiration. But yeah, it's like finding that balance of how to outlet it and
Well, and some, I don't know if you all ever feel like this, but like I've been doing this for 10 years now, this brand. And I'm like, sometimes I just goes like, what if I have a better idea and I'm not doing it?
I know,
You know?
sometimes.
There's always that what if.
Yeah, so it's just like even this thing that like, younger me, this is like all my dreams, like I'm like, what if I'm not doing like something cooler? Like I don't know. I guess that's probably like just the entrepreneur or creative brain. You're just it never settles. You're always just like you have goalposts, you reach the goalpost, and then that goalpost moves.
Right. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, Jimmy, again, I'd love to keep talking about this, but as we approach the end of our interview with you, Teresa and I do this fun little thing, which always makes everybody laugh and sort of, I don't know, some people balk. Some people really like that we do this. It just depends who you are, but you're a creative person, so I have this hunch you're going to like this, but we always ask our guests some totally random, fun, out of left field question that doesn't really always have something to do with who we are and why we're here. But so our fun question to you is, okay, you're building the ultimate backyard barbecue team, right? So you're getting ready to throw this great barbecue. You need a team behind you to help bring this party to life. You get 3 famous people, they could be dead or alive, to be on your team. Who are you picking and what is their role?
This is probably the worst question for me because I'm not a celebrity person. I guess as a kid I loved the Chicago Bulls, so I'd have to do Michael Jordan.
Oh, yes.
I love Interstellar, so probably maybe Matthew McConaughey, I guess.
Ooh, okay.
And then real or dead or alive. I'm trying to think. It'd probably be cool to meet somebody from history, but I don't know how well they would like a backyard barbecue in 2020. Third person, let me see. I'm trying to think. I could probably do like Miss Rachel, so my daughter would.
Oh yeah, I know Miss Rachel. Yeah. Okay. So what's the great MJ doing? What's going to be his role? Is he like the grill master? Is he like the drinks guy? Like, what do we think he would do?
Well, if somebody's a grill master, then what the heck are the rest of us going to do? I guess. I guess he would be the grill master because he's the one who's like in the paint and doing all the.
Yes. There you go.
Then I guess.
No, I'm thinking like
Matthew McConaughey would be the drinks. I think he seems
yeah. I think you're right.
Or just
he would be like the cooler
vibes,
drinks,
you know.
Yeah. And then Miss Rachel would do like entertainment, maybe.
Probably
keep the kids entertained.
Yes.
Yes. She's the one doing balloon animals and like the bouncy house.
Yeah, she would definitely entertain the children for sure.
All right, let's go. Let's make this happen. This sounds like a fun barbecue.
I'd go. Mostly just so I could like be completely speechless in the presence of Michael.
Right. Be like, what's going on here? Why are these people here?
Awesome. I love it, Jimmy. Well, thanks again for being on our show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. For anyone listening, please go check out Atomicchild, all of the cool creative things that your team is doing. It's just very inspiring, and I love seeing what you guys are doing. So
thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, another huge shout out to Jimmy, and seriously, one of my favorite retail brands. I was thinking about this as we were doing our interview. I own a hat, a fanny pack, 3 pairs of socks, 2 water bottles, and a t-shirt, a multitude of stickers from Atomicchild.
Okay. What I want to see, maybe for the show notes, is you wearing all of that.
Okay. This should be a fun challenge. Oh my God.
The Atomicchild challenge. We could start like a viral thing.
Oh, let's do it. Okay. I am so in. we digress. As you all know, this means we're nearing the end of our episode, so it's time for a little more fun. This month, we're playing a little game called If the Industry Were a Person. So Teresa and I will each pick a technology or like some sort of specific industry thing, like such as like screen printing, and we're going to assign it a personality, kind of go into like paint the picture of what these technologies would be. So we each selected 3 and we each assigned some personalities. So Teresa, I'm gonna say, can you kick us off?
Okay. So my first one is laser engraving.
Yes.
And it's the mysterious minimalist. Wears all black, speaks softly, leaves permanent marks, and refuses to elaborate.
Oh, I love that. As somebody, I way back in the day, I was the editor of a magazine that focused almost entirely on laser engraving. So
There you go.
yes, that's such a perfect personality. I love it.
All right, what's your first one?
Well, I had to go obvious. I picked screen printing to start off with.
I have a personality for screen printing too. Let's see if they're different or the same.
Yes. Okay, this is kind of fun. I was secretly hoping we would pick the same one. Okay, so my personality I've assigned is the old school rock band drummer.
Nice.
Okay. Not only because most screen printers get their start through concerts, music, bands, but this person is loud. They are messy. They leave their drumsticks, aka ink, everywhere, and they refuse to believe that digital auto tuning will ever replace them.
Okay, my screen printing personality is the camp counselor.
Yes.
Loud whistle, sunburned nose, unstoppable energy. They thrive in groups of 500 and somehow keep everyone in line.
Okay, but I could see screen printing being both of those personalities.
Yeah, it's like 2 sides of the coin almost.
It is. It is. I love it. Oh, I'm so glad. That's just okay. We could end there and I would be completely happy. Okay, but also I've got a couple of, okay, so I also picked direct to film printing because I kind of like thought
That's what I did too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But like we're gonna do like a little like screen printing versus new guy, right? So for mine, I picked the trendy and sometimes annoying younger sibling.
That's so funny.
So this person learned everything online, wears cool sneakers, thinks screen printing is quote unquote vintage, and sometimes over promises and under delivers. Sorry,
snap.
all you DTF printers out there.
So for my DTF personality, it's the chaos coordinator, has 47 tabs open but makes it work, and will absolutely say yes to your 12-color photorealistic raccoon on a deadline. Whatever that means exactly, but
For anybody listening, could you please create Teresa and I a piece of branded merch that has a 12-color raccoon on it? I need to know what this would look like. I have to. All right.
I love those personalities. I think that they're fun and evocative.
All people I would hang out with, right? Like in a room.
And we do. And we do.
Right, also, let's be real. We do. Okay, my final one, and I went a little off the rails here with a wide format printer. This would be the theater kid.
Okay.
So big, dramatic, kind of moody, takes up all the space in the room, and the catchphrase is go big or go home.
Love it.
Yep.
And appropriate
Right,
for sure.
Exactly. So anybody listening, again, if you have your own personalities you would like to assign or create a 12-color raccoon, hit us up. We're going to make it happen. All right, Teresa, I really enjoy these fun segments, but of course that means, again, we're at the end of our episode.
Until next month.
Right, exactly. Thanks again for yet another enjoyable experience. And we'll see you all next month.
Bye.